welcome to Rise City Church. We're so glad you chose to join us today. And those clips you just saw were from our last parking lot pop-up event. We're gonna have another one of those, so stay tuned for some more information. My name is Mariah, and I'm one of the pastors here at Rise, and I'll be your host this morning as we join together to sing along with our worship band, learn a bit more about what's going on in the life of the church, and hear from our lead pastor, Brandon. And by now you might be wondering, what happened to your arm, Mariah? Well, I was fending off a bear while saving a baby from a burning building, and all I got was this broken wrist, so that's not too bad. But seriously, if you're checking out Rise for the first time today, we want to say thank you for being here. We would love the opportunity to get to connect with you personally and learn more about who you are and how you found us and share with you who we are as a church. So if you want to get connected with us, please do that by texting the word Rise City, one word, to 484848. Again, Rise City, 484848. And just for allowing us to hear from you, if you live in San Diego area, we will send you a free card for Chick-fil-A. One Chick-fil-A sandwich to enjoy on a nice summer's day. So please send in that text message and we'll send you some Chick-fil-A. While you're busy texting that up, let's get into a little bit of worship.
When night is falling, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, I'm not good God, enough. You're enough for me. God, you're good enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up. Decided you won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. It won't let us go. Feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. It won't let us go. Feel it breaking out like an echo. An echo in my soul. Keep repeating promises to me. Oh, now there's no stopping what you have started until it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, when my mind says enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided, so I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like
past few weeks have been so great to be able to see you guys face to face on a Sunday night. We are excited to have another chance to connect with you in our second ever parking lot pop-up happening tonight. So grab your lawn chairs, grab your easy ups, and come take part in this informal gathering with some acoustic worship, prayer, and socially distanced connection. And yes, we can sing because it'll be outdoors. The event will begin at 6:30 with some free food, some pulled pork sliders from Eastbound Grill, and we'll also have the ice cream truck out afterwards, so feel free to bring the whole family. The event will last until around 8 p.m. or whenever the sun goes down, so we hope to see you there. If your kids are entering grades kinder through 5th grade, then we have an exciting event for them this week to kick off their new sermon series for the month of August. There will be 2 ways to attend this event, either online or in person. For kids coming in person, we'll have a high-energy 2-hour program for them happening all outdoors to be in line with our newest county regulations. We'll play some games, talk about our upcoming sermon series, and have a blast with some friends. For our kids attending online, they will each receive a mystery Zoom box full of interactive elements that they'll get to open throughout the Zoom event. So whichever way your family decides to attend, they're gonna have an awesome time. And I know the spots are limited for the live event, so if those are filled up, be sure to sign up for the Zoom because it will be so much fun. That will be happening August 1st, so be sure to register right away. And also, just on a special note for parents, I want you to know that we see you guys. We know that it has been such a rough month with plans for schools reopening and plans changing and then rechanging again and distance learning looking like it might be the norm for the fall. We just know how hard that's been for you guys and for your kids and how many decisions are on your plate right now that you have to make. And we want you to know that we're praying for you as parents and we are praying for your kid, and all of the leaders in the kids ministry are praying for your kids by name. And so we just want you to know that you have our support, and we're working on ways here at the church to see how we can support you guys in the fall. Maybe there's a way for us to leverage our building for some families maybe that live in smaller apartments to have a place to homeschool, or do some enrichment activities where you could drop your middle schooler off for PE here. You know, if we can find some safe ways to do that, we're working on it, and we want you to know that we see you and that you're in our prayers. Also, we know that care is something that continues to be a big need in our community right now. So we want to remind you that should you or any family member be feeling the need for prayer or just to talk with a member of our pastoral care team, we are here and we are available for you. You can contact us directly by texting the word CARE to 484848. Again, CARE to 484848. You can also connect with us on our website at risecitychurch.com or on the app or by emailing care@risecitychurch.com. However you want to reach out, we would love to be there and just know how we can serve you. This week, we wanted to reach out to Eastbound Grill and see how they're doing during this quarantine and to spend some time in prayer for them and for our community. There are so many small businesses right now that we would love to get to support, and here's just one of our very favorites.
I'm Kyle, I'm with Rise City, and I'm here with Ben from Eastbound.
How's it going?
And one of the things we wanted to do more often is get into our community and find out how they're doing.
Yeah, it's been very hard actually. You know, not to be lightly at all with it. It's been difficult. Everything changes constantly. Luckily, we have a great team here, and we're ready to flip and change whenever we can. You know, and right now we're working outside in 95, 100-degree weather, and hopefully trying to serve Lakeside as best as we can.
Yeah. We were talking earlier, and you mentioned one of the core values of your organization. Can you bring that up and just tell me?
Yeah, one of our number one core values, we're all about the people, you know, and no matter what, we want you guys to be, you know, have a great experience when you come to Eastbound. And sometimes it's not, you know, we have our bad days just like anybody else, but we always want to make it right, you know. So I think with us working outside right now, that's kind of what we always think about when we're always changing, like how can we make this all about the people? You know, it's not about us, it's about our customers and making them comfortable, happy, you know, make sure they leave with their bellies full and spirits high, you know, especially in times like this.
Is there anything that people of our church could know more about, like how we can support you? Obviously the food is amazing.
Right. Just come out and sit down in our parking lot and enjoy a cold beer or cold glass of water and some
Depending on where you're
good,
at.
and some good cheeseburgers, you know, and just be patient with us because this is all new for us, you know, and we're doing our best to give you guys the Eastbound experience that you're used to and grown to love over the last 10 years, you know, and we've been through tough times before, you know, we've had a fire here and our community supported us. We have the best, we really do have one of the best communities, if not the best community in San Diego, if not California. You guys are always supportive of us when times are tough, and I think when things like this happen and we see customers come in daily, even though it is 100 degrees outside, we know we're going to be okay, and we have the backs of Lakeside and East County.
That's cool. If you'd be comfortable with that, I'd love to pray for you. Pray for your
Absolutely.
staff.
Let's do it.
God, I just want to say thank you for Ben. I want to say thank you for Eastbound and how they've been such a positive environment here for this community, positive environment for Lakeside. I just ask for your best for him, for the staff, Lord, that you would just take what they've got and double it, multiply the positive that's coming their way, Lord. I ask for your best for this group. Thank you, Lord, in your name. Amen.
Amen.
We're so grateful to be able to partner up with them this weekend for the parking lot pop-up, so be sure to show up for some pork sliders. Lastly, we want to say thank you for your continued generosity in this really trying season. It allows us as a church an amazing opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus to our local community and beyond. So however you choose to give, whether it's online or through the website or the app, or a physical gift delivered here, thank you so much, and it's deeply appreciated and used well in our community. Well, that's all the announcements we have for today. You may have heard this song we're about to play before, and we know that it's a great message that's so needed right now. The message is that our God is still rolling stones. So whatever stone is blocking your path right now that's been trying for you, we just pray that you're going to turn to God and give it to Him because He is still rolling stones.
Out of the shadows, bound for the gallows, a dead man walking, till love came calling. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. 6 feet under, I thought it was over, an answer to prayer, the voice of the Savior. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. All at once I came alive. This beating heart, these open eyes, the grave let go, the darkness should have known. You're still rolling stones. You're still rolling stones. Now that you saved me, I sing 'cause you gave me a song of revival, and I put it on vinyl. Oh, rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. I was blinded, but now I see it. I heard about the power, and now I believe it. Rise up, rise up, rise up. All at once I came alive. This beating heart, these open eyes, the grave let go, the darkness should have known. You're still rolling stones. Hey, you're still rolling stones. I thought that I was too far gone for everything I'd done wrong. Yeah, I'm the one who dug this grave, but you call my name, you call my name. I thought that I was too far gone for everything I've done wrong. Yeah, I'm the one who dug this grave, but you call my name, you call my name. All at once I came alive. This beating heart, these open eyes, the grave let go, the darkness should have known. You're still rolling stones.
So I've got some big news to share with all of you as I start the message today. News that I know some of you already know, but for a lot of you, this is going to be your first time hearing it. I'm currently sitting in my garage, and around me, behind me, is essentially my entire life now all boxed up, ready to go to the next place. You see, over the last year, my wife and I have been contemplating what our next step would be regarding our family, and a little over a month ago, we made the decision that it was time to move. So that's what we're gonna do. We're actually moving from our home here in Santee to Boise, Idaho. I'm just messing with you. Did it cause anybody to have any scare whatsoever? No, we're not jumping on the Boise bandwagon like all you other people. Rather, we're gonna be moving just a few miles east to Alpine. Alpine, the Boise of San Diego County, as I like to call it. Seriously though, we are ready and excited, a little bit nervous, but man, we've been a bit restless over the last year, feeling like a little bit more space and a slower pace would be beneficial for our family, and so we're gonna make the move. And so I'm sitting here in my garage today because the process of moving has caused me to reflect a lot lately. And I wanted to share with you a significant realization I made that I really believe is important for all of us to consider. So as we get ready to make this move, it struck me that this move is only possible because of the generosity of two people that I actually only met a couple times my entire life. Those two people are Orla and Marguerite Blair. Pretty sweet names, right? I think they're gonna make a comeback someday. But seriously, Orla and Marguerite are my wife's grandparents who have both passed on to be with the Lord. And for a big chunk of their lives, Orla and Marguerite lived in Zimbabwe as missionaries. Well, anyway, at some point, the two of them believed that it would be a great gift to put some money in an interest-bearing account for each of their grandchildren when they were born. Now, catch that. Not money in an account for their children, but for their grandchildren. I'm pretty sure they did do something for their own kids regarding inheritance or something like that, but Orla and Marguerite were thinking about their grandkids before they were even born. I mean, that's 2 generations ahead of them. And their hope was that this money would mature to a point that it would help provide some type of a down payment for their grandchildren to purchase their first home. And so when Jamie and I got married almost 14 years ago and we're looking to buy our first house in Central Illinois, needless to say, I was blown away and unbelievably grateful when we were given $13,000, which was 10% of our purchase price. Now, for the Californians watching out there and who can do some math, I know you just got really angry, but it was that fact and that act that they were so forward-thinking and generous when Jamie was born that 22 years later, it resulted in our first home, which is pretty incredible if you think about it, right? Well, from that point, we lived in that home in Illinois for 7 years, and then we sold it to move out here to California to start Rise City Church. We made a little money on that home and then transferred all that we made into a down payment for our first home here in California, which we actually sold 8 months later after moving here so we could move from Lakeside into Santee. Made a little bit more money in that, put all of it in a down payment on this home right here. And we've now been in this home for 7 years, and after selling it and making a little bit more money, we're using all of it as a down payment for our new home in Alpine. Are you following with the progression here? So here's where we're at. 36 years now after Orla and Marguerite's act of generosity, it's still bearing fruit. It's still making an impact. I mean, how crazy is that? Talk about a gift that keeps on giving. I mean, I've been chewing on that thought alone so much recently and just humbled and amazed and grateful. And you better believe it's causing me to want to someday do likewise for my own grandkids. Not that my kids better have kids anytime soon. So another thing that has caused me to reflect while I was packing is I actually came across a couple of Bibles that were my great-grandfather's. His name was Edwin Grant, and unfortunately I had already packed them all up before I decided I was going to preach this message, or I'd actually show them to you to prove that they're real, but these Bibles were what my great-grandfather read from and preached from when he was a Methodist minister. Now, I only have a few memories with my great-grandfather. He passed away when I was really young, and all I really knew about him was that he was a pastor, but not much more than that. Until a few years ago when I was gifted these Bibles from my aunt. And one thing that my aunt shared with me that actually popped back into my mind when I came across the Bibles while I was packing was that my great-grandfather Edwin and his wife Marion used to pray, I guess, a ton for their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. And evidently he would pray for them to know the Lord and to dedicate their lives to Jesus, as well as to be used by Christ to help others know about Jesus. And so here I was, I'm packing up my house, holding these Bibles of my great-grandfather, and it struck me like, oh my goodness, like his prayers were, like they were answered. Like one of his great-grandchildren became a pastor. That's me. And he prayed those prayers 35 years ago. God heard them and they actually came to fruition. He never got to physically see them answered because he passed on way before I became a pastor, but they got answered. He was intentional, not just to pray for himself or just his wife or his own kids, but for another generation, for his grandkids, for his great-grandkids. And I became a beneficiary of his intentional, future, forward-thinking, generational prayers. And so when reflecting on both sets of great-grandparents, I really saw I'm a beneficiary of someone else's intentionality to think about the next generation with their finances and their prayers. Because in both of those instances, people of one generation considered, they prayed for, they even gave money towards the next generation that God then used to bless and impact this generation, or my wife and I. Orla, Marguerite, Edwin, and Marion all possessed a generational faith. They leveraged their today in order to bless someone else someday. They possessed a generational faith. Now, what exactly is a generational faith? This is how, at least I would define it. Generational faith is when you intentionally make decisions today that will someday create a future hope for others. Let me break that definition down. When you intentionally make decisions like today, intentional decisions about your thoughts, about your emotions, your attitude, intentional decisions about the words you're going to use, the actions you're going to take, or the reactions that you're going to make today, but that will someday create a future hope for others. Perhaps it's going to create a future hope of emotional stability versus instability. Maybe it's creating a future hope of marital optimism versus pessimism. Perhaps it's a future hope of financial generosity versus greed or hoarding. Maybe it's creating a future hope of living with godly discernment versus cultural compromise. Or maybe it's even a future hope in the necessity for relationships versus personal isolation, for community versus autonomy, a future hope for unity versus what we're finding constantly now, being divided. But above all, a generational faith intentionally makes decisions today that it's going to someday create a future hope for others to fully rely on Jesus, both in this life as well as into eternity. And so when you hear this definition of generational faith, this is the question I've been asking. I want to ask you, like, do we possess that type of faith? Do we possess a generational faith? See, I'm asking this question because I am a beneficiary of generational faith, and I believe God wants us to leverage our lives now so others can someday be also beneficiaries of generational faith. Now, as some of you watching know, I've been going through the letter of 2 Timothy every morning, Monday through Friday online in my morning Bible study. If you're not aware of that, quick commercial, hey, join with me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. live, Rise City group on Facebook or Instagram. It'd be awesome to have you with me. But last week, there was a particular chunk of verses in 2 Timothy that I covered that have really continued to bounce around in my brain every day over the last week. 2 Timothy is this ancient letter that the Apostle Paul wrote from prison in Rome right before being executed And he was sending this to this guy named Timothy, who he deemed to be a son in the faith. He essentially had a spiritual impact on Timothy. Paul had a profound impact on Timothy's walk, and the two of them did ministry together. In many ways, Paul was like Batman and Timothy was like Robin. Timothy was Paul's protege. Paul had a specific affection for Timothy, and he's writing him right before breathing his last breath. And oftentimes when people are sharing their last thoughts, don't we often tend to pay more attention because we believe that what they're expressing must be of utmost importance, or why waste your last breaths on that? So anyway, 2 Timothy, Paul is writing here in chapter 1, verses 5 through 7, actually just 5 and 6, something that I found to be extremely inspirational in terms of generational faith, and I've been chewing on it a lot lately. I remember your genuine faith, for you share the faith that first filled your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice. And I know that same faith continues strong in you. This is why I remind you to fan into flames the spiritual gift God gave you when I laid my hands on you. It's 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 5 and 6. Now, did you catch what Paul said? As he's writing his last words, he actually chooses to point out generational faith. He highlights Timothy's genuine faith, but he then points to a couple of others who were instrumental in helping Timothy have a genuine faith. Paul talks about who I like to refer to as Nana Lois and Mama Eunice. And this is so important not to overlook. Paul is essentially reminding Timothy that his genuine faith is a result of generational faith of both his grandma and his mother, Nana Lois and Mama Eunice. And these two possessed the same faith that is now strong in Timothy. And if they possess the same strong faith, then where do you think Timothy got his faith from? I mean, think about this for just a moment. In Acts chapter 16, the writer of Acts, his name is Luke, he informs us about when Paul first met Timothy. And we're told that Timothy's dad was Greek, but his mom Eunice was a Jewish believer. What this means is that Eunice believed in the one true God that the Jewish people followed. It also means that she was a believer in the coming of the promised Messiah, the one that God would one day send, who is going to bring about restoration, bring about hope and healing for the entire world. By Luke labeling Mama Eunice as a Jewish believer, we know that at some point she came to believe that Jesus was this long-awaited Messiah. And she put her faith in Jesus. So simply we could say Mama Eunice became a Christian. But Eunice's faith wasn't something that just appeared. It was actually something that was planted in her by her mom, Lois. See, growing up, Nana Lois was intentional to share her faith with her little girl, and as well as the longing for the coming of a Messiah. And so Nana Lois was a woman of faith who intentionally made decisions to pass her faith on to her daughter, who then eventually passed her faith on to her son, Timothy. And at some point, we don't know exactly how it all played out, but Mama Eunice and Nana Lois came to faith in Christ, sat Timothy down, likely shared with him their belief that Jesus was the promised Messiah, and then Timothy also became a Christian. You see, this is why it's so important not just to breeze past these couple names and think, oh, they're irrelevant there in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5. Because there are 3 generations of faith represented in that one verse. You got Nana Lois, Mama Eunice, and you have Timothy. And Paul is pointing out this model of generational faith that I believe is to be a model for our faith too. Now, keep going with me and think about this more for just a moment. In verse 6, Paul reminds Timothy to fan into flames the spiritual gift that God has given you when I laid my hands on you. And what we gather from this is that at some point, Paul met Timothy. He prayed over him, and when he prayed over Timothy, God gifted him with a spiritual gift. Now, we have no idea what that actual spiritual gift was that he received. Some speculate and some dogmatically believe that it might have been the gift of preaching or teaching or maybe even evangelism, because we later see Timothy exercising these gifts. But truthfully, we really don't know what the exact gift was. But that's not really the point, or at least what I want to try to focus on right now. What I want us to think about and what I want us to focus on is how encouraging, how refreshing, and how rewarding it must have been for Nana Lois and Mama Eunice when their son had the Apostle Paul lay his hands on him to commission their grandson and son to be used by God to spread the good news of Jesus. I mean, just imagine all the prayers and all the conversations that piled up behind that moment when Paul came and prayed over Timothy. How many times did Nana Lois make an intentional decision to honor God with her thoughts and her words, her actions, her reactions that encouraged her little girl Eunice to follow in her example? How many times did Nana Lois find herself on her knees crying out to God for her children and her children's children, that they too would have faith in God? I mean, how many intentional decisions did Mama Eunice make in order to create the future hope that her son Timothy stepped into? How many prayers did she pray? How many conversations did she have? How many intentional times did she share her faith with her son? How many times did she honorably walk the fine line of trying to honor her husband, who we know was a Greek and likely not a believer, but still try to share with her son Timothy the hope of the Messiah? I mean, what intentional things did Eunice do, or maybe what intentional things did she choose not to do that actually helped Timothy catch the faith? Because more often than not, faith is something more caught than it is taught. And so when they see or they hear about Paul laying hands on Timothy and Timothy receiving a spiritual gift, how fulfilling would that moment have been for Nana Lois and Mama Eunice? Because Paul was the tangible answer to their prayers that they had prayed for their precious boy. Like, God had come through. God used their intentional faithfulness in their present moments to create a future hope for someone else. Let me say that again. God used their intentional faithfulness in the present moments to create a future hope for somebody else. And if that's the case, how can we begin to maximize our present moments with generational faith so others can experience the blessing and the hope of Christ in their future? You see, for me, this connecting of the dots is really inspirational because it reminds me of how vital it is for us not just to slough through each day without any intentionality, or to just think about my own wants, my own needs, my own stresses, my own pressures, my own frustrations, my limitations, whatever. I think about me rather than considering others besides just me. And namely, it causes me to actually consider my kids, my future grandkids. It causes me to consider the next generation. And this example of generational faith, it inspires me because it proclaims that what I do matters, not just now, but it matters later. How I respond in moments, it matters. How I treat others now, it matters. What I look at, what I spend my time doing, what I spend my money on, how I channel my emotion, all of it matters. There's purpose in today, because it actually creates a future hope for others someday. Small, consistent acts of faithfulness. They plant seeds today that others might come along and water another day, that God ultimately grows into a future fruitful crop someday. I mean, does that make sense? Is this resonating with any of you out there, or just my own ruminations while I'm back in my garage and I'm just like spilling them over camera? I mean, let me get really practical then for just a moment, just to try to take this a little further. Because this generational faith reality, it's making me ask these types of questions for all of us. How can we put into place today what we desire to be the future for our children, our children's children, as well as future generations? I mean, what if we chose today to intentionally pray and cry out to God for our kids, for the next generation, and that they would choose Jesus and they would follow him? I mean, what if we prayed daily for them to know Jesus more and to become more like Jesus? What if we chose today to think about how to maximize time with our kids, which includes the extra time that the government just granted us? Side point, I know that's not making you happy like it does make me happy, but please know that we are wrestling with this. Our hearts are heavy and we know this is stressful. Our staff is praying and trying to figure out ways that we can come beside you in this difficult time because we didn't ask for the government to give us this extra time, all right? So hear that, it impacts me and it impacts our staff. So just know we are praying through that and we're with you. Side point over, but what if we chose today, though, to think about how to maximize the time with our kids and actually to see it as something God will use to help form Christ-like character in them so that they might someday become the men and women that God desires them to be? What if you got that bonus time for a purpose? And what if we chose, like right now, today, to demonstrate love and kindness and compassion rather than quick judgment and snap reactions and anger? So that the next generation truly does someday live in a reality of human value, of human dignity, of equality and equity. And these are realities no matter gender, nationality, color of skin, economic status, whatever, because they see us treating everyone with respect. I mean, what if we chose today to actually prioritize the promises that we made when we first got married so the divorce wouldn't be the expected norm someday in the next generation? And so the next generation one day would actually believe again in the institution of marriage that God established for our best. And they would actually want to stay committed to one another. Like, what if you could break the cycle of whatever has been established in the past, in the future, because we stay committed in marriage? And what if we choose today to handle our finances in a God-honoring way by choosing to actually give first no matter what? Choosing to save a portion second and then living off the rest. I mean, might the next generation then someday find themselves more free financially and not strapped and completely heaped into this pile of debt? And might generosity and humility mark them rather than greed and entitlement? I mean, the questions could go on, but I really do believe if we cultivated and possessed this type of thinking, it would drastically impact how we embrace each and every day. What we give ourselves to do each day and the decisions that we make, because we'd actually be thinking about others as much as, if not more than, our own selves. And is this not the way of Jesus? Is this not what he taught? Is this not what he modeled? Was not his entire life leveraged for the sake of future generations being blessed and being forgiven, being redeemed and restored, being filled with hope now and eternal hope forever? I mean, this is not the way of Jesus. And if it's the way of Jesus and we're followers of Jesus, should it not be our way too? I mean, should we not take a cue from Nana Lois, Mama Eunice, Apostle Paul, and Timothy? Should not generational faith be the type of faith that we seek to cultivate and carry out? See, I've been spending a lot of time recently in this garage packing up all these boxes, and this is what I've been reflecting on and ruminating over, and it's caused me, honestly, to be extremely grateful, amazed, inspired, and excited, because today matters, because it has the potential to give the hope of Jesus to others someday. It's not just a wasted day. And so the question I'll close with is a question I've been asking myself at the end of each day this last week. What intentional decisions did I make today that God may use someday to create a future hope for others? And if that question has a limited amount of answers or no answers, then it definitely informs me how I need to go about my next day. Rise City Church, I pray that we would live with a generational faith, that Nana Lois and Mama Eunice would become our heroes. And for all the men watching out there, because I know there's some of you out there, you don't comment very often, but I know you're out there. I'm praying that we would also lead and not leave this just for the ladies to do the work, but we would become Pauls and Timothys who intentionally pour our lives into future generations. And may we see that what we do matters. What we say, it matters. How we say it, it matters. How we act, it matters. How we react, it all matters. So may we be uber intentional so that the next generation becomes beneficiaries of blessing and they stand amazed at Jesus. And finally, Rise City Church, may the favor of the Lord be upon 1,000 generations, or until Jesus returns, on your family, on your children, on your children's children, on their children, and their children, and their children, and their children, and their children. Amen.
Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. Amen. 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 Lord bless you. Lord bless you and keep you. Make His face shine upon you. Be gracious to you. Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. Amen. His favor be upon you. His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May His presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you. He is with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming and your going, in your weeping, in rejoicing. He is for you. 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 Amen. Amen.
Well, Rise City, thanks for joining us for our online experience. So grateful that you continue to trek along with us in this really unique time. I want to invite you, if you are watching on Sunday, hey, tonight we are going to have an outdoor pop-up service event, and as you heard earlier, pulled pork sliders from Eastbound. So, I mean, yeah, Kyle's got a good voice, but sliders, that's why you need to come. So that'll be tonight, 6:30. Start the service around 7. It's going to be a great time. Hope you join with us. And as we move into this week, I'm praying that generational faith becomes a part of our pursuit. Because ultimately, that's what it means to wake up, rise, and shine. That may we wake up to Jesus, the one who his very life blessed generations to come after him. And may we rise to life in him, which is we're following in his example. And if he led by example with the generational faith, then may that become a part of our faith. And may we shine to others. And what if in our thinking, yes, others is like people right around us, but what if others is like people who aren't even born yet? As future generations, as we await the return of Jesus, what if we shine so bright that what we do now impacts their someday and they experience Jesus? Have an awesome Sunday, an awesome week, and we'll see you again online next time.